welcome to another episode of Deuce. We are coming to you from the Clubhouse. I'm Julie Snook, and joining me on his leather lounge is AP.
Yes, it's older than me.
Well,
which is saying something. Which is how are you, Jules?
I'm great. How are you? Nice to see you.
I'm good. Plenty happening in the lead up to Christmas. Got a wife's birthday thrown in there. She's unlucky 6 days before Christmas. So lucky,
I thought my
unlucky.
son was unlucky.
Yeah, wait till
week
you had a
before.
second birthday party for your son on the weekend.
Yeah.
But no, I'm keeping an eye on everything that's going on, obviously, with tennis because we're in off-season mode, the 3-minute off-season that they have. But actually drove past the courts where friend of the show, Jordan Thompson.
Yes.
I point there because he was there.
He was there
not that long ago.
last time we saw him.
But Tomo was out there with a few other Aussie players. I think Chris O'Connell was down there in blazing sunshine, about 32 degrees, thinking, you guys can have that. We'll just watch over the summer. Thank you.
Absolutely. And to think he enjoys it. And he was getting out there with the West Tigers in their training session. And it's been hot in Sydney too.
Got to do it, though. Got to do it. Geordie had the rig out as well. So shirt's optional and he chose the other option. So well done, Geordie.
Yeah. Similar for you, I hear, when you mow the lawns too.
Not quite. I put a jumper on.
So this week's guest, this is going to be a good chat. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yes. Legend of Australian sport. You become that when you win a Grand Slam or a Davis Cup or a Fed Cup, now known as a Billie Jean King Cup. But she's the captain of that for Australia, and she had a great moment in New York in 2011. She had various great moments, but incredible to think that her career was nearly over just as it was starting.
Yeah, it's a remarkable story and just an all-around great chick, really. Here's Sam Stosur. Our next guest in the Clubhouse, I'm so looking forward to this one, is a Grand Slam title winner, former world number one in doubles, top-ranked Australian singles player for 452 consecutive weeks.
That's a lot of weeks.
That's a lot of weeks. The accolades go on. We don't have time to go through them all. Welcome to Juice, Sam Stosur.
Oh, thank you very much.
Do you get that intro everywhere you go?
No, not typically, but, I'll take it. I won't complain.
Sam, can you believe it's been almost a year since you announced your retirement? What does life look like for you these days?
Almost 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, but I have been working this year. So I had a year off, then took this role as the captain of Billie Jean King Cup team. So, but yeah, look, it's actually gone pretty quick. I haven't been sitting at home twiddling my thumbs with, wondering what I was going to do with most days. So, but it's been good. I enjoyed last year's kind of being at home a little bit more and, just kind of having a bit of downtime and not getting on a plane every week and all of that stuff. And then this year, obviously a lot more involved with the team and working in that capacity. But yeah, no, retirement's good. Retirement's very good.
But Sam, you get to this point of the year and as a player, you're really selfish. You're on the court, you're focusing, you're preparing for the Australian summer. But now you're still doing that, but you're not actually playing, but you're across all the Australian women's players that are trying to prepare and you're helping out as much as you can there. Plus motherhood, Christmas time, presents, everything like that. Have you considered that maybe this time of year is busier than it's ever been?
It can feel like that a lot of the time, that's for sure. Because also now when you have Christmas parties, there's kind of like, oh, well, I got training, or no, I'm not going to do that because I got training tomorrow. So there's not really, as many excuses to not be at everything that you can be. But no, it's one good thing is I can kind of design my week so I can do my Christmas shopping during the week, not on the weekend with everyone else. So it's been okay this year. I've been semi, organised.
But and Jules, you'll know this as well. I've used this card many times. Sam, you can tell us if you have. When you say that you might be there, but you really don't want to go there, you just go, sorry, I've got to pick up the little one.
The kids.
Yeah, I've just got to get home. All that. Yeah, it's perfect, isn't it, Sam? You use that card.
Didn't we use that for last week when we tried to record?
Yeah, you did actually. So now I know where.
That's come back to haunt you. Sam, but what's it like? Because I tell you what, I've got a 2-year-old little boy. AP's got too many kids to count. You've got a daughter of your own. It's so busy. Life is so busy. How do you juggle parenthood as well as being a professional athlete?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, when you're the actual athlete, it's it is definitely a challenge because, being a athlete, you have to be quite selfish in a lot of ways. And then you have this little human come into the world and you can't be as selfish anymore. And, you really got to be organised. And I've had a very supportive partner throughout my career. So, that always helps as well. So, it wasn't always easy, but especially the last year traveling on the road all together as a family for the most part, actually for nearly every tournament bar a few.
Wow.
That was great. It was really enjoyable and fun, a totally different experience to the rest of my career. And I'm really glad we were able to do that as a family together to kind of, finish off my career and then be like, yep, we've done that, done it all. And happy to finish there. So now it's, obviously not about me being an athlete whatsoever. It's about how you make their day as enjoyable as you possibly can. So, I quite often get called the fun mum because I'm a bit more like, all right, well, what are we going to do to me? Because I've got a bit more flexibility at work and stuff. So I got to be careful I'm not, too much that way.
But logistically, come on. A child on tour, seriously, I can't even go to Woolies without having a freak out about what the kid's going to do, let alone international flights.
Queen of the bassinet.
What was it like? You guys must have mastered it.
Thankfully, she was always pretty good flying. Her first overseas trip, she was not quite 2. And we flew to LA and then had a 3-hour drive to Indian Wells. So I think that kind of set her up for, being a bit, being pretty flexible and robust and just sort of going with the flow. And she's been in many hotel rooms and, kind of knows the drill with getting on a plane now, which is pretty cool. So, I think we got lucky with someone who could kind of handle that for sure. Only had one kind of meltdown on a big flight, and that was 15 minutes coming home from Miami or Orlando or somewhere after about 40 hours. So I was like, you know what? I feel like screaming and crying right now too, but I can't get away with it, whereas you can. So, but it was great. I think, she was able to converse very well with adults and go to restaurants and, do all that stuff, and then actually came home and probably found it quite challenging to play with kids her own age and actually make friends in that capacity. So that was then the next challenge when, you come back to normal life and you start childcare and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I can't quite comprehend, like you did, you got into motherhood obviously at the end of your career, but imagine if you're at the absolute peak, you're saying you're mid-20s, you're prioritising singles, you're top 10 in the world, and you see it on tour a bit, both men's and women's, that they're trying to balance it all. And I shake my head. I just wonder how you can be in such a selfish sport like tennis and try and get the best out of yourself when you're at that level, and then have that, real life, as real as it gets, happening at the same time.
Oh, look, after having gone through it, I, absolute new level of respect for those players who have been able to come back, and obviously the women who have actually given birth and come back within a year or whatever it is. Sometimes it is absolutely phenomenal what they're able to do. So I don't quite understand how it's possible, but I think that's where you just have to have such a great support network around you and very understanding people, and rely on a lot of that, because it's not easy.
It's superhuman. I can't come up the stairs without getting puffed, and these women have gone and had children and they're back to the elite level. It's so impressive. But this is a bit of a deep question, but does it change your perspective a lot on tennis, your career, when you have a little human come along and you're seeing the world and the tennis sphere through a very different set of eyes?
Oh, absolutely, for sure. Even maybe my second last year when I was still playing singles, it was kind of, you do have a different perspective and things are definitely different. And I think a little bit different for me, maybe because I was definitely towards the end of my career, and I knew that it was wrapping up, so to speak. I didn't know exactly when at that point throughout that year, but I knew it was pretty close. And when we were away and I was choosing to go to the playground after my match, or, after training, instead of going to the gym sometimes, or potentially going to the physio, which is what I would have normally done, and I'm going to the playground, I'm like, all right, I think I've hit that time where I know it's time to hang it up really, because I couldn't give everything I needed to anymore, and I kind of didn't want to. That talk about the priority then shifted to Evie and what you could do together. So a little bit different maybe because I'd had such a long career. It wasn't right in the middle of it, but I guess it certainly became pretty obvious when time was it.
Sam, you don't come across to me as someone who Googles themselves too often or looks at their own Wikipedia page or even builds their own Wikipedia page. But say if you stumbled across it, I showed it to you, the career stats, it breaks it down, titles won, how you did in Grand Slams. There's a little box there that ticks it all off, and prize money and everything like that. You look at that and you go, yeah, that was pretty good. Satisfied with that? Or do you look at it and go, I should have maybe got a bit more out of it?
Nah, I am very, very happy, content with the career that I had. I think, of course, there's times where you're like, oh, wish I'd done that match, won that match, or, whatever it may be. But as a whole, growing up as a kid who wanted to win a Grand Slam, I did it. And that was, what I wanted to. That was my childhood dream. I know that I got everything out of my tennis, out of my game that I possibly could have. I know that there was, days where it was hard to want to go to training sometimes because you're feeling sore and tired and what have you. But I never missed a session because of that. And, I got everything out of it that I possibly could have. And I think because I had such a long career, I didn't leave any stone unturned. So that's where I think I could be. I kind of made the call, played that last match, retired, woke up the next day, and not for one day since have I thought I've made the wrong decision or regretted it, because I'm just, genuinely happy with what I was able to achieve.
I reckon you should go and have a look at it. I'd be looking at it 3 times a day if I was you, because I'm just looking at it now. US Open, W, 2011, final of the French Open, second week of most Grand Slams, even though you weren't totally comfortable at the grass. You loved the tournament at Wimbledon, and you had some good results there. Highest ranking in the world of doubles. Number 1, 9 singles career. Got the 9 singles career titles. Number 4 in the world. Decent amount of prize money. Won't say exactly what in case the ATO is listening, but it's good. It's got a lot of numbers in it. But yeah, it's
similar
pretty good
to
career,
yours.
Jules. Oh,
You were just showing me photos of the backyard pool. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, it's an inflatable one though, so it's you can let it down in winter. But Jules, that's a pretty handy set of numbers.
It is a pretty handy set of numbers, Sam. But you were just saying that this was a dream that you've had since you were a child. So when did you discover tennis? When was the love instilled in you? When did you think, hey, I want to do this?
Pretty early on. I started playing when I was 8, just with my brother at the local park, and then months later started getting, a 30-minute group lesson a week and that sort of thing. And then obviously became more serious as the years go on and everything. But I was in, I must have been in year 5 or 6. So I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. Went to a brand new school, and they did a time capsule where, kids in that year wrote a letter to them future selves, what they wanted to be when they grew up. And I said I wanted to win a Grand Slam, be number 1 in the world, and go to an Olympic Games. So back then I must have been pretty into tennis at that point in time to even have that thought. So to have been able to tick off 2 of those, I just kind of shake my head at that and think, how could I have thought that at 10 or 11? Or it's a dream. You don't actually know. I didn't know.
But it's very specific, and you did manage to do it.
Yeah, no. It's kind of, I've told that story a couple of times, but it's still, I've got to find the copy of it. I've got it somewhere, but it's very kind of funny how I literally wrote that and they dug it up however many years later. And they sent it to me. So, that was actually pretty cool to look back on that, because I obviously totally forgot. I didn't know what I was writing when I was 10 years old, and even what it really meant. Obviously, no idea what was going to, what you have to do to even do that.
Outstanding. But, it turned out okay. But when you got going and obviously showing a bit of talent, you get on tour, then you had that massive setback which threatened to derail everything when you Was it a mosquito in Paris? I seem to remember that sent you off tour.
Tick bite. So I had Lyme disease.
Yeah.
I think it happened in Paris. I haven't quite been able to pinpoint exactly when, but I think that's probably where, because I started getting ill through Wimbledon that same year. And then, long story short, ended up going to the US Open, was absolutely not in any capacity to play, but I didn't realize that at the time. 3 games into the match, I was like, I don't know if I could finish this match with how I was feeling and everything else. And doctors thought maybe I had rubella or something else, but then I just lost all my conditioning. So it was a matter of just getting fit again. And it was a couple of months after that I realized I had some more symptoms come on and realized I had Lyme. So it took me about 10 or 11 months to get back to tour from that point. And I'd never heard of it before. I didn't know what it was and, how you possibly could get something like that. So it was a real learning curve when the doctor I was seeing told me that that's what I had, and then what I was going to have to do in order to get healthy again, and then obviously try and build on that to get back to playing tennis.
And are there ongoing ramifications from having a condition like that?
There can be, depending on how quickly you get treatment and mostly how quickly you can get diagnosed, A, and then B, get treatment for it. If it goes on for years and years, you can have all sorts of, other problems and neurological problems and everything else. And, I had a bunch of different symptoms through Wimbledon and then after Wimbledon. And then just after the US Open that I tried to play, I ended up with viral meningitis. And that was kind of a big okay, this is quite serious. There's still something going on here. And that's when I went down the track of, sorting it out more thoroughly, I guess, and looking a bit deeper into it once I had that happen. So, but once I did my treatment, kind of took it really, really slow with my training and everything, getting back, I literally started with a 20-minute walk and I just became very good at listening to my body. Okay, where am I at? I don't feel great today. I feel tired. This is in the first few weeks of returning to play at tournaments and things. I still remember before the first French Open I came back to, I actually had 2 days off because I was absolutely shattered. So really just became so in tune with what I was doing. And thankfully, touch wood, I never had a major setback from it. But I do think I'm quite lucky in that respect, because I had a resource of people and WTA doctors and physios and people in Australia here that I could really rely on and take their guidance from, whereas I guess your everyday school kid isn't necessarily going to have access to that. So I do feel very fortunate.
All from a tick. All of that from a ton. And I think that there's a few things in our wonderful world that I struggle to comprehend where they fit into the cycle of things. And I do not know what positive impact a tick has on society.
It's a really valid point.
And the circle of life, if you like. I watched The Lion King the other night, so it was a weird scene because you see giraffes and rhinos and elephants hanging out together at the end of the movie, which is not real, but the whole message of circle of life, everything has its place. A tick doesn't. I don't know how we got here, by the way.
Is everything okay over there?
No, I just when Sam was explaining just off that tiny little thing.
Do you know what's
how
weird?
It nearly ruined her life, or did for a stage there. And it's like, what do you bring?
You're
Nothing.
the second person to say that this week.
Thank you.
My mother-in-law said it earlier in the week too. Very strange.
It's the most important person in your life, your mother-in-law.
Questionable. Anyway, Sam, on that, are you a patient person in terms of recovery and the process, or did you find it really frustrating? I'm a very impatient person. I would find it frustrating. I'd just be wanting to get out there I'd get frustrated at my body. How were you?
Yeah.
How do you process that?
I think at that point in time, I felt so average. The last thing I wanted to do was be out and about.
Yeah.
But it was hard because my doubles partner and I had actually qualified for the end of year championships that year. And I had to call her up and be like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm literally in my bedroom, not leaving the bed for days on end. So I think through that early stage of that, the thought of even trying to do anything was just so far gone and completely unrealistic. You kind of just had no choice. And then like starting training with a 20-minute walk, trying to keep your heart rate under 120, that was pretty frustrating, because even though I actually couldn't do it, you're like, come on, how can I not go for a walk here compared to what you're used to doing?
That's incredible.
But I think because I had the information and the people and resources at sort of the disposal that I had, I could sense that it was quite serious, and if I didn't follow it, I could have a setback, and I didn't want to go revisit that space. I just didn't want to go there again. So I was very good at following direction and just listening to what they said, and that's sort of how the rest of my career sort of played out as well. I'm very good at following direction, following tactics, doing what I thought, and people around me thought needed to be done, so I could do that. But other things probably not so much. When you have a niggle or sprain your ankle. Another time I missed the 2020 or 21 French Open because I fell off a ladder and thought I'd broken my foot, and waiting for that bruise to heal was just excruciatingly long and painful, and that really got frustrating, because all I wanted to do was be able to run on the court, and I just couldn't do it. So depending what it is, I think it's a bit harder than other times.
We're going to get to the really good stuff in a moment, namely the 2011 US Open. But
you mean actual tennis?
Yeah, the actual tennis. But this is an actual tennis question, not a circle of life question. So you've been through that, and when you are able to and get back on the circuit, and like we all look at tennis and know that if you're not physically prepared, you may as well not be there. You may as well stay in the restaurant and hang out with your friends. But getting yourself physically prepared, you came across to me when you were playing as someone who always put themselves in a position physically to be able to capitalise on whatever was going on out there. You got the most out of yourself in that regard. Was that because of that, or you would have done that anyway?
I mean, I was already sort of trying to do that, but I do think in hindsight, not that I wish to have gone through that, but I think it certainly did kind of make me think, all right, when that happened, I was number one or close to number one in doubles, and I was between 30 and 50 in the world of singles, which is still pretty good. Like, I was pretty happy with that. But I think once then I couldn't play for that long. I thought I feel like I can do better than that. And it kind of was a bit of a wake up call to be like, okay, it's good, but I think there's more there. So I think I can do more. And then, but you also have to learn, I think, what that is. Until you actually know what that is, you don't know. And I guess I learnt that through the coach that I had, and then that just became sort of normal. So I think it was, I don't want to say blessing in disguise, because it was not a great time, but I think certainly little things like that sort of make you sit back and think, okay, am I absolutely doing everything I can? And yeah, I certainly came back a better player.
As a tennis fan, watching you throughout your career, you are a weapon. You always look unbelievably fit. Even now, sitting there in front of us, unbelievably fit.
No, this is all a facade now.
Just take it and run, Sam. Take it and run. What do you enjoy doing away from the court, exercise-wise? What do you enjoy doing? Because you look like you enjoy fitness.
Look, I did. It's funny though. It really surprised me when I retired, the lack of motivation to go and do anything. And then I realized, hang on a second, I really like doing all the fitness stuff and going to the gym and doing the cardio sessions and whatever else you were doing, because I knew what it was for, and I knew it was making me a better player. And then without that, I felt a bit, well, what am I doing this for? And I haven't, honestly, the amount of times I've been in the gym since I retired, I could count almost on my two hands. So I realized why I enjoyed it more so than just being like, geez, I love going to the gym. And now, I mean, I love sort of going for a bike ride. I swim at the pool occasionally, but my New Year's resolution will probably be to be a little more active and do a bit more exercise. I need to find some sort of like game or team sport or something, I think, to keep me accountable, to show up every week.
She's like the rest of us. She's human.
But yeah,
New Year's
definitely.
resolutions.
New Year's resolutions. Be more active. How many of us do that?
Yeah, true. Good
I
point.
mean, I
However,
won't be, let's be honest. But it's always
someone-
there. It's a thought.
Yeah. If someone said, let's go for a hit, I'd be there in a second. Like, I still love hitting. So that's sort of still my go-to exercise, I guess.
Hey, take us to 2011 US Open. So to win a major, you got to win 7 matches. So you got to be on 7 times in a row against the best players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you win that event? Not how, but why?
Well, I guess
do you reckon?
was. I've never been asked that question in this way. I think I'd learned a lot of lessons from the year before at the US Open. I made quarters, lost in a long 3-setter to Kim Clijsters one night, and then losing the French Open final the year before as well. I think I kind of then understood how to manage myself a lot better throughout those 14 days, because it's a long time. It's a long, like 7 matches is a long time to keep good form, plus your days off in between and everything else. And I just learned how to manage myself physically and mentally a lot better. And there was definitely one day I didn't go into the courts and practice that year because I'd had a really late finish the night before. And it was kind of like, no, learn from 2010 US Open, where you don't have to go and practice just for the sake of practicing because you think you should do that. So I think there was a lot of lessons I'd learned in the year or so prior to that tournament, and just how to manage everything. And I think I was obviously playing very well, and kind of got through some sticky situations early in the tournament. I had a really long match with Nadia Petrova in the 3rd round, and 4th round was pretty close. We ended up playing the longest tiebreak at the time or something at the US Open. And then, I think I just learned how to manage everything better and was able to keep my form.
Not only keep your form, but the way in which you won and defeated Serena as well. 6-2, 6-3. What was it like watching Serena down the other end and her reaction, shall we say?
One point in particular here, Sam.
Yeah, look, it was funny because we actually played in the final of Toronto 3 weeks before we played at the US Open, and she beat me there. I think it was 4-4 or something like that. So I think having recently played her, my coach and I were pretty clear on, okay, that's what happened there. What can we do now? And I wish I still had the piece of paper, because Dave wrote 5 things on this piece of paper that I had to do, and I did all of them, as well as I could have ever asked myself to on that particular day. And yeah, I think during that match, obviously when that happened, I actually didn't know the rule at the time. I hadn't really seen it, heard it, whatever, and was sort of just going with what the umpire said, obviously, and then changed hands, and I felt about this big on that court and absolutely petrified. And there was actually then a point, maybe 2-1 in the 2nd set. We ended up at the net, had a bit of a reflex volley thing. I hit a winner past her, and as I turned back, I saw out the corner of my eye she clapped the shot on her racket, and for whatever reason that just settled me right down, and I was like, okay, she doesn't hate me, we're all good, I can play. But that was my thought, like,
really,
honestly. So sometimes I think if I was still in the match, obviously it was 2-1, we were still very even, but sometimes I do wonder if I hadn't turned around and seen her do that, if I missed that, if it would have taken me longer to kind of settle back into the rhythm that I had and doing all of that. And because no doubt the crowd really shifted to be, I don't feel like they were against me. They were just super, super, super pro Serena all of a sudden. And so the whole crowd got ignited and everything else. And, but yeah, I always have sort of thought, geez, if I didn't see that and wasn't aware of that, how long would it have taken me to get back to where I was? And then, yeah, obviously that was totally fine. And that was,
totally fine. Yeah, it was all right.
Well, it was such a weird vibe the whole day. And Sam would have been shielded from this, but it was because Sam's preparing for a huge match. I was there working for TV, and Arthur Ashe Stadium is the biggest stadium in tennis, and if you're on top of the roof, which is where we were, you feel like you're miles away. You feel like you're like 500 meters away from the action, but you can still pick up the whole vibe. Now, this was on the 10th anniversary to the day of 9/11.
Oh, wow.
This match, because there was a hurricane that blew through, I think, Sam. So the tournament got delayed.
There was all sorts of delays. Like, we didn't end up having a day off between semis and final.
It was weird.
There were all sorts of rain and different issues going on. Yeah, exactly. And then, we ended up playing on the 10th anniversary, and it was a very, very big day in New York and in America, obviously.
Yeah, but
around the world, but especially there.
Yeah, and the first set, it was like this. This is weird because Serena's playing. You'd think the crowd would be hyped, but it was a touch of somber mood because they had a ceremony obviously before the match, and Sam came out and just, well, if you were going to quieten a crowd, but the crowd was already kind of quiet, the tennis that Sam played just flattened everything. But then Serena, that point where she plays that shot and yells out, "Come on," to get herself going before Sam got a racket on it. Not entirely sure you were getting it back, Sam, but anyway, I won't put it past you. And then that's set off Serena, and that's what it led. And it got the crowd going a little bit, but in the end, Sam got back to first set tennis, and so bloody good being an Australian in that stadium that day.
And what does she say to you at the net after that match? I mean, you see in the trophy presentation too, she's chatting and smiling, but what does she say to you after that?
Look, honestly, she was just actually quite congratulatory and, really nice. And I can't remember the exact words, but it was also a bit strange because I've never seen this since, and I hadn't seen it prior. When we were waiting for the trophy ceremony, she came and sat in my chair next to me as well when we were waiting, and we kind of had a bit of a chit chat. I was like, oh, what's kind of going on? Because I'd really, always admired her as a player and everything as well. So even though I'd just beaten her in this moment, that was still a bit like, oh, hang on, Serena's sitting here next to me, talking to me on my side of the net. What's happening here? So I wish I could kind of relive it again if I could ever have been in that position again, because so much of it is actually a bit of a blur and you can't kind of piece it all together. And then other bits like the off forehand return I hit to win the match, I remember that clear as day. We'll never ever forget that shot. But then other moments after that, you're kind of like, oh, did that happen? Or you might see it on TV, or someone will give you their perspective and you're like, oh, okay, that was then. Or you kind of lose clarity on what actually happened.
Speaking of admiration, you became the first Australian woman to win a Grand Slam championship since Yvonne Goolagong-Cawley with the Wimbledon in 1980, and the first Australian woman since Margaret Court to win at the US Open since 1973. When you hear stats like that, names like that, and your name in amongst the history books now, how does that feel as an Australian?
Yeah.
As someone who wanted to win a Grand Slam and now to be there and with those names.
Oh, it's incredible. Again, like growing up as a kid wanting to do that, it really is just a dream. So to be able to say your dream came true, it is pretty, remarkable. And to be amongst those names and, legends of the sport, it is, it's an incredible honor and a very, very special kind of, I guess, sentence to sort of be a part of. I mean, they did so much more than what I did, but to have won a tournament like that since, that many years had passed, I mean, it's hard to even kind of articulate it.
Are you the also the first Grand Slam champion to have in New York your celebration drinks at Snafu Midtown bar? Something out of Cheers. It's like a bar like in Cheers almost.
Very low key. I don't know. Does it mean that nobody in my team thought I was going to win? So they didn't or I'm not sure. I actually never got to the bottom of that.
Was the booking made pre-match, or was this a last minute?
No,
quick, we better go somewhere.
It was all late. Well, as far as I knew, anyway. And just a bit of a dive bar and 10 or 12 takeaway pizzas from the shop down the road. I was happy. It was a great celebration.
Sounds like a typically Australian celebration to me.
No.
What would you do if you won?
Exactly the same.
Yeah, I was like, we'd all be just a little bit lost and in awe, and we wouldn't know where to go.
I'd also ponder how we got into a parallel universe that I was actually celebrating something like that, which simply would not happen. But yeah, like other people go, like book out a ballroom or go to
fancy.
Nobu
Yeah.
or carry on. But
I always get hungry when I leave places like Nobu anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Sam did it well. Sam did it
my
spot
husband's
on.
looking for the Macca's afterwards so he can go and get some more chips.
It's not quite the time you won a doubles Grand Slam though, Sam. You ended up at a Chinese restaurant, your playing kit.
Well, yeah. So 2021, after Shui and I won the doubles, she was organised and had booked a restaurant, but it was right near the court. So we literally took our bags and rackets and went in our tracksuit it was very good, to a Chinese restaurant near the court. It's not something I ever thought I'd say I'd be doing. And ate as a big team and group and everything, which was great. And then eventually got back into the city. And then I will admit, then I said to the people that were with me, I said, okay, we're going down the street back to Snafu.
Hey. More pizza.
That's where we ended up. And it must be on the map, because about, I don't know, a few hours after we'd been there, Dylan Alcott showed up, and he was out and about, and then we all joined forces at Snafu. So we didn't know we were both going to be there, but it was the place to be.
And that man can find a party.
D. Alcott.
He knows how to find a party. That man.
We've got to get Woz to buy Snafu, I think, and make it a Fanatics bar.
I'm down for that.
Yeah.
Let's go to the opening.
I'll invest.
Yeah, will you?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
You good for it?
Contra for doing this. 2010, Sam, just back to 2010 French Open. So you're actually favourite in that final against Schiavone. But what did that tell you about life or tennis, or did you get too deep with it, or you just pass it off as one of those days?
Well, look, at the time, I mean, yeah, I was definitely favourite to win that match. I'd had three of probably my best wins, well, three of my potential best wins of my career in the three matches prior. And then got into that one, and there was talk about learning some lessons going into the US Open. It was all pretty wild. All of a sudden you got security guards following you everywhere the day before and of your day of your match and everything else. I had first time being followed by paparazzi leaving dinner the night before, and it was all a bit just strange and weird and very, very different. And nobody in my group or team had ever experienced that either. So I think going into the US Open, we'd sort of been there and done that, so knew how to handle things a bit differently as well. But that match took me a long time to get over, and I was pretty shattered. In hindsight, I wish I probably had changed my schedule a little bit and changed things up instead of thinking, oh, no, I'm fine, when I actually was just completely devastated that I'd lost in that final, and actually didn't watch a point of it until the following year when I was at the French Open in the lead up to the tournament, got my food in the restaurant there, and I had to watch it because it was on every TV screen. And I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to get it right in my face now.
This is forced therapy.
Yep, and saw bits of it, and actually then realised, it actually wasn't as bad as what I thought it was. And Frank played a great match. I was not quite at my best, but it was what it was. And that actually really made me realise, actually just be proud of that achievement and making it to the final. Don't look at it as, oh my gosh, I lost that match and I should have won, because nobody could do anything. It's two of us out there, and she played better on the day, so that's the way it went.
Is there a tournament that you absolutely loved? You spent a long time on the road. Is there one that you used to just really look forward to getting to?
Well, I mean, Grand Slams playing wise, I always loved playing at the French. It was probably my favourite. And then smaller tournaments, I love playing in Charleston in the States. That was on green clay, but it was, it's all very different now. They've got a brand new stadium, which looks incredible, but it was very homely and very comfortable. And the people running the tournament were amazing. I met this fantastic host family who, gave me their downtown place to stay in for the week, and I just loved the downtown. So that was always a favourite. I loved playing in Osaka. Again, the tournament, was sort of a bit old and whatever, but everyone there just was so friendly, and I loved playing there. And I kind of land into Osaka and be like, okay, here we are, let's go, and just loved it every single time. So They're sort of two places, I guess, that stand out as favourites on tour.
And playing on tour for as long as you did, it opened some doors. You meet some fascinating people. What's the weirdest door that got opened for you? But the one that you look back on and go, how did that happen? Or how did I get that for just playing tennis well? Or have you got something along those lines?
Oh, maybe early on playing so my doubles partner when I was pretty early on tour was Lisa Raymond. She'd been number 1 in the world and won Grand Slams and everything from the States. And we'd been playing for maybe a year or so, and she always played world team tennis after Wimbledon. Sorry, it was a 3-week event, city versus city. It's all a bit crazy. I never actually played it, and they were short a player for Elton John charity day or charity night, and she asked if maybe Sam could come. I'm going. Do you want Sam to be the extra person, that they were sort of looking for? And apparently they called up Elton and he said, oh, okay, sure. Yep, she can come. So I just remember flying, we were in Pennsylvania, and all of a sudden, I was 21 or 22 or something. I was sitting on court with Elton John, Billie Jean King, Andy Roddick, James Blake, Martina Hingis, Anna Kournikova. There was a couple of other people there, and it was Elton's team against Billie's team. And I was just like, am I really here? We got picked up in a limo to go to the courts, did some auction thing. And I was just like, how am I here with all of these people?
Oh, well, Anna and Elton had something in common. They never won a tournament. So there you go.
Oh, well done.
So, that was, I guess, one thing that, kind of like, wow, okay, that was pretty cool. Never thought I'd be doing that.
That's a good dinner party list, actually.
That's a pretty good...
That's really good. If I could pick 10 people to have a dinner party, that's a good list.
There's a few on that list.
There's a few on that list.
Yeah.
Extraordinary for a 21-year-old, though. So, incredible. What about mixed doubles partner you could choose anyone from?
Oh.
Any era, and women's doubles partner as well. You can mention the people that you won Grand Slams with, but prefer you to go a bit abstract if you could and come up with 2 players.
Geez, I mean, if I could have ever played with Roger, that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
I think, playing with him. I mean, Roger, Rafa, whoever. That would have been incredible. And geez, women, I mean, I loved, my 2 idols were Steffi Graf and Monica Seles, growing up, and both had just retired sort of by the time I started playing tour tournaments and stuff. So never got to see them play at a tournament or anything like that once I was actually a player. So not that they were necessarily known for their doubles prowess, but I think I'd have to pick one of those 2.
Well, the good thing is with your career, sorry, Jules, is that all of those 4 people know who you are and would say hello to you in the corridor and everything. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, Roger doesn't know me.
The time I did meet Steffi, I couldn't speak. I'd returned to this 8-year-old child who wore their tennis outfit to the Australian Open women's final, and I just couldn't speak. I literally was like this person who couldn't speak and was just in absolute awe of who was standing in front of me.
How cool.
That's my fear. If I ever run into Roger Federer, I don't think I could talk.
Well, that'll be a problem if you have to interview him.
It will be a huge problem.
Yeah.
Just putting it out there.
You'll be fine.
Speaking of doubles, and I am getting the wrap up, but I do want to ask you this question. Novak and Nick Kyrgios to play doubles at the Brisbane International. What are our thoughts?
Just heard that on the radio coming home, yeah. I mean, they've kind of put it out there, so that's certainly going to be a packed crowd.
The bromance.
Yeah. Who would have thought of maybe, 5-6 years ago that was ever going to happen and be on the cards?
When Nick was having his red wines in the middle of the pandemic down in Canberra, and Novak decided to organise a tournament for everyone to come along. And anyway, it goes to show you that anything is possible in life. Quickly, Sam, as well, your current role. Australian women's tennis, we've got one just inside the top 100, Olivia Gadecki, who's a player that's going to improve, and who knows what her ceiling is. But then we've got 9 from 100 to 200, which shows you there is depth, but shows you how much depth there is in women's tennis in general. What's stopping these players breaking through and having breakthroughs like you did early in your career?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously we want more players in the top 100, that goes without saying. And if there's 9 between 100 and 200, there's actually 3 between 106 and 114, I think. So they're, some of them are very close. Obviously, Isla and Dasha have been top 100, have been, top 40 pretty consistently, and injury has sort of derailed them in recent years. But there's a really good couple of young girls coming up. My Joint, who's gone from about 600 to 130 or something in a year, and some other young ones that I'm sure everyone will get to see at the Aussie Open. So I think there's some really good promise coming up. And I think it's just that exposure. Sometimes being in Australia, it's hard to see that level week in, week out. And, we have to go away for so long on our trips. And, at that age, when you're first starting, it takes a little bit of time to sort of know how to manage that, and what is the amount of time I can go away for before I kind of feel, like you need to come home and have a break. And that's just one little tiny element of living here and being based here in Australia with this sport. So I think there's not much difference between some of those players and players who are 70, 80, 50 in the world, who are pretty cemented in the top 100. So, fingers crossed that next year we can actually see some of those guys take that next jump. And I think once 1 or 2 do, others are going to start believing maybe that little bit more. Hey, if she can do it, I practice with her every day, I'm going to do it too.
I know in AP's household, I imagine there's lots of photos of his illustrious career, lots of vision playing, lots of interviews that you've rolled out over the years. I mean, you are a busy media personality.
So much so that my children don't even know my name.
So much so. Sometimes I just call you AP because I forget what that actually stands for. But I'm just wondering, at what stage does Evie find out what a legend her mum is and what mum did for a living before she came along?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think, she has just zero idea.
They do at this age.
But I did. She knows I go to tennis, and I played tennis. So when she was 2, must have been my second last, maybe it was my last Aussie Open. Whatever the case, we came home and she was like, still during the tournament, and we came back. She said, "Mama, can we go play tennis in the backyard?" And I was like, okay, sure. She was all about it. She goes, "Okay, I'm Serena and your mama." And I was like, okay, sure, you can be Serena and I'll be me. That's fine.
Did she yell out, "Come on," before you got the return one there, just for old time's sakes? 2011?
No. But I don't know. It's kind of be interesting how this, I guess, how the next few years sort of play out if she sort of cottons on a little bit of, what I used to do, perhaps.
Well, fortunately, you are forever humble, and you are one of our favourites for a reason. What a remarkable career you've had, and what a remarkable hour it's been chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us, talking all random things that we do here. We just never know where it's going to go.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. That was fun.
Thanks, Sam.
I like David Attenborough over here, by the way.
What?
The tick.
Circle of Life.
Lion King, ticks.
It's just, So there you have it. That is Juice. Now, don't forget, if you enjoyed what you've seen here on Fanatics TV, give us a like if you can. Hit the like button. Also, subscribe. It's somewhere down there. And importantly, tell your mates. Grow the Clubhouse. We want all in.